Hello and welcome to AutoToday. Now if you're in the market for a large, premium, practical SUV, then BMW has the X5 for you. If you want something with more space for 7 and something that is better suited to a chauffeur-driven experience, then there is the X7. But if style and flamboyance are at the top of your priority list, then let me present to you the all-new BMW X6. Now the X6 is, as they say, the OG SUV coupe because it was the one which started the trend of the whole sinking roofline in an SUV when it was introduced first. And since then, BMW has sold close to 500,000 units of the X6, which goes to show just how popular the car and this segment has become. Now it is back in a brand new avatar and we have the car with us and we'll take a closer look at the car, show you the interiors, tell you how it is to drive and more about it. But before we get to all of that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more automotive content from the AutoToday YouTube channel. Although the X6 and this SUV coupe segment have been around for more than a decade, the design still manages to create plenty of visual drama thanks primarily to a roofline that sinks more severely than some of its rivals. The kidney grille sitting between the all-LED headlights, optional BMW laser light in our test car's case, is bigger than before but doesn't look oversized. Buyers can opt for the iconic glow feature for Rs 1 lakh, which entails illumination for the grille that comes on with the headlamps. Cool or uncool? You decide. Compared to its predecessor, the new car has grown in size. In profile, the rear of the X6 seems a bit overweight and even the standard 20-inch rims appear small. The X6 gets mixed tires front and rear. It's a very busy rear end with plenty of creases and very obviously fake air vents on either side and sleek LED taillights. Like it or not, the design is undoubtedly very eye-catching and will definitely turn heads, and that really is the whole point, isn't it? The front seats and the dashboard aren't any different from the X5 with the same basic layout for the dashboard, including a 12.3-inch digital instrument panel and a 10.25-inch touchscreen interface. The latest version of BMW's iDrive lets occupants interact with the vehicle. Hey BMW.
Hello, what can I help you with?
I'm feeling hot.
Oh, I am lowering the temperature, so it will be more comfortable shortly.
Also supported are gesture controls for functions like changing audio volume or answering or rejecting phone calls. Front seat occupants are also treated to heated and cooled cup holders. While our test car didn't come equipped with BMW's crafted Clarity glass application on the gear selector, starter button and iDrive controller, it can be ordered as an optional extra. Speaking of which, there are plenty of options to choose from, including soft close functions for the door, BMW display key, head-up display, 4-zone climate control and a Harman Kardon audio to name a few. Some of it, however, specifically the Harman Kardon audio setup and 4-zone climate control, should have been offered as standard, we feel, keeping in mind the X6 asking price. The X6, being brought in as a CBU, lets BMW offer customers high levels of customization, including a plethora of upholstery and interior trim choices. There's plenty of space in the boot under the electrically operated tailgate with a claimed capacity of 580 litres, which can be increased up to 1,530 litres by dropping the rear seats. This being a coupe SUV, you'd think that space in the rear might be a little cramped, but it's actually surprisingly not the case. Of course, the feeling of space is not as great as it would have been in a conventional SUV with a more horizontal roofline, but even then, even with the sloping, the sinking roofline, there is decent amount of space. I mean, there's no shortage of headroom, at least for me. I'm an average size individual, but even if you're a couple of inches taller, even then you won't feel the lack of headroom, nor is there any shortage of knee room. I mean, this seat is not exactly pushed forward, it's actually quite far back, but still there is a decent amount of knee room. My only slight grouse is that thigh support isn't that great. I mean, I do get the feeling that I'm seated a little lower, and it does seem like BMW has deliberately positioned the rear seat a little lower to ensure that there is plenty of headroom, but again, not a deal breaker, and it's not a bad place to be at all. Although this particular variant, the one we get, does not get individual temperature controls for the rear. All you get is your dedicated aircon vents and sort of a temperature gauge which you can vary with these blue and red indications, but yeah, it's not a proper individual zone per se. And there is a USB Type-C charging socket for both seats, and you can also get optional rear seat entertainment which gives you individual screens so you can watch something, listen to music or whatever else you want to do. The BMW X6 that comes to India is the petrol-only model. This 40i variant that arrives with a 6-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine is quite potent. You'll see the specifications on the screen right now, and acceleration is also quite brisk. It takes about just over 5 seconds from a standstill to 100 kmph, which is pretty good for a car this size and something that weighs as much as this X6 does. We've seen in recent times in newer BMWs there have been very noticeable changes in terms of the way the car is set up, the way the car handles and the way the steering is set up. Unlike the previous generation models which had a very noticeably heavy steering even at lower speeds, this one is more on the neutral side. In fact, at slow speeds it is pretty light, it's easy to twirl, and you won't feel like you're piloting such a big heavy vehicle at low city speeds. Of course, at higher speeds, at triple-digit speeds out on the highway, it weighs up quite nicely and does not give you a reason to complain as such. In terms of ride and handling and sportiness, there is of course that characteristic BMW sportiness to the X6, which is quite likable, especially if you're looking to take the wheel and if you're going to be driving it primarily yourself. Of course, it has softened a little bit, which is nice because it's a little more comfortable now. But if my memory serves me right, then compared to say the X5, this one still has a stiffer setup. Now in the M Sport trim, it does not get the 2-axle air suspension like the other variant. This gets the adaptive M suspension setup, so it does vary based on which mode you're in. For instance, if you're in comfort, it'll be at its softest setting and keep you nice and cushy. In sport mode, it'll stiffen things up a bit for that, of course, that sporty feeling. It'll weigh up the steering. The transmission will also be more reactive to inputs and to throttle inputs. Although at very low speeds in lower gear, it can be slightly jerky, but again, you can always find your perfect setting. You can configure sport mode to individually customize all those aspects of the car.
Over the years, we've come to expect great handling characteristics from BMW SUVs, and the X6 delivers on that promise. We know saying a car this heavy and this tall shouldn't handle the way it does is becoming a bit of a cliche, but that holds true in the X6 case too. The ZF 8-speed torque converter, a BMW staple now, does its job rather well without giving any reason to complain.
So the BMW X6 then comes across as a rather attractive package. It's got a healthy list of features, a fairly potent petrol engine, a nice cabin, enough space for 4 and even 5 for that matter, and characteristic BMW driving performance which impresses as always. But most of all, it's got style, and that it has in spades. I mean, looks are purely subjective, we've always maintained that, but there is no denying the fact that this thing will turn heads wherever it goes. At 95 lakhs ex-showroom, it isn't exactly cheap. I mean, this is the CBU after all. But then again, if you factor in its rivals, which are the Audi Q8 and the Porsche Cayenne Coupe to name a few, this one is actually cheaper than both of them. And like we said, the BMW X6 is perfect for you if style is a top priority.